Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about mirrors. Mirrors have been mentioned hundreds of times in L&L research channeling sessions over the years, often noting how we're mirrors to each other and how the people we have issues with are in fact reflections of aspects of ourselves that we have not yet accepted or made peace with. The entity known as Quo has more than a few times described third density as a hall of mirrors at the carnival, where everyone we perceive and everything we experience is wildly distorted from its true nature. What does all this mean, and how can understanding it better help us in our spiritual journeys? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups at the L&L research page shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawof1@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with the Zoom link and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty. You can go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawof1@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is mirrors. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead and let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Michael.
Yeah, my name is Michael. I'm calling from Austin, Texas. And man, I'm just excited to be back on the podcast. So thanks for having me, man.
We are so excited to have you back. Thank you for being here. And Andy?
Hi, I'm Andy, calling from Cornwall, Southwest England, and thank you for having me. It's going to be great fun. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It's always great fun having you on. Thanks for joining us again. And Andrea?
Hi, my name's Andrea. I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta, up here in Canada, and I'm excited to be here with my brothers, sisters, and seekers in love. So yeah, looking forward to it.
We're so excited to have you back again. I did want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts on the law of one or authorities. We are just normal people like you, having conversations about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything we say could be wrong, and you're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the law of one and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on the mirroring effect. Otherwise, for those who are new to the law of one, you can think of the law of one as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. More or less everything else we say after this could be considered some variation of that one statement. Everything that we're reading through today came to us through the process of channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. Basically, a channel serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they do not know what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with an entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of the social memory complex as a planetary consciousness, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of reality or different levels of consciousness, since those two things are very closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying for centuries that they do. We'll call that first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly, a significant quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of planet Earth was merged into one single consciousness. Clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond that of fifth density. It is more complicated than that, and you can go to our episode on densities and dimensions to get more details on it. For now, suffice to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then, up to the present day, by the L&L research channeling team. Session transcripts can be found at the L&L research conscious channeling library shown on your screen. Having said that, let's take a look at a few passages on what is described as the mirroring effect. On July 23rd, 1989, Quo said, "The mirroring effect that those within the mated relationship experience is an intensification of the mirroring effect that is experienced by each entity at all times when in contact with others. It may be noted within the mind when there is an interaction between entities, when a thought, word, or deed that has been shared remains within the thoughts that you think and remains with a certain charge, shall we say, when there is a response by yourself to any thought, word, or deed of another that causes you to move from the center of your being and causes you concern of any kind, you may notice the mirroring effect as it is generated by your own subconscious mind. That is to say that you have before the incarnation chosen certain lessons upon which you shall apply yourself. You have therefore biased your perceptions in a manner which will allow you to see what we may call a neutral experience or a neutral catalyst in such and such a fashion that is in accordance with your pre-incarnative choices. Thus, a number of entities may witness the same exchange of experience and respond by feeling a variety of responses. This is due to the unique nature of each entity's pre-incarnative programming and subconscious bias." Fascinating, again, for those who are new to the Law of One to understand that these words came out of the mouth of someone who was in a deep meditative state, really didn't know where they were going with this, were only slightly aware of what words they were saying as they were saying them. They were just trying to make what they felt was telepathic contact with what they believed to be an extraterrestrial entity, and this is what comes out. Super cool. I love the part at the very end where they really talk about how everyone can look at the exact same thing and see it in perhaps wildly different ways. Easy to forget, I think, these days. Michael, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Oh yeah. First thing I thought was like, man, that's a really eloquent way of just talking about how important and difficult relationships are for us, and just how we, I guess, just interact with other people and how it just mirrors back everything that's within inside of you. So yeah, that's what I got from it.
Yeah, for sure. And you have been in a mated relationship for how many years with Desi?
Oh, we've known each other since 2012, off and on, of course, because relationships are hard. But we definitely more serious now in the relationship, and just like everything that's come with that has just been the biggest catalyst for my evolution of growth spiritually, and just as a human being, and not even thinking about spiritual things, just trying to get through life before I got on my path. But it's definitely been the biggest catalyst to my growth. So yeah.
You and everybody else. That's why I thought it was really interesting that first line where they said the mirroring effect of those within a mated relationship is really just an intensification of the relationship you have with every other person that you encounter. I just thought that was
Yeah.
kind of a funny thing. Yeah. Andy, any thing to add? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, it's so interesting, I think, because so many of us get into relationships, and I've seen so many couples divorce, and I just think, wow, these two people who absolutely hate each other at some point were completely in love with each other, and then and like what happened? I'm always so fascinated, and I'll probably get this later on. But my question is like, how does this mirroring work? Because I don't believe the mirror reflects exactly what you're hiding from. So for instance, let's say a child, a young toddler, pre-verbal, is playing with a toy, and someone snatches the toy and the child gets upset. Is that a mirroring effect? Is it because the child feels that the person taking the toy away is showing them an aspect of themselves that they don't want to see? It just seems over complex. So yeah,
In
again,
that
I've got nothing to
particular
say.
instance, I can see, yeah, I'm not quite seeing it the same way as seeing aspect of self, but I think maybe in terms of more adult interactions where you're interacting with someone who you're having some disagreements with or have issues, then I could easily see how you're seeing a reflection of some aspects of ourselves that we haven't really made peace with.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, recently I've come across this term in psychology, in Jungian psychology, called projective identification. And I think that's something that I've seen couples do, including myself and my husband, where we're feeling something and we don't want to express it. So we provoke the other person into expressing it.
Which can be a really interesting dance to dance, I'm sure. Andrea, do you have any thoughts, reflections on any of this to add or anything else?
Yeah, for sure. Really, really interesting quote, and especially since it's from '98. But one of the funny things here is, yeah, mated relationships. They basically trigger you. They're your catalyst right there to say, here's I'm holding up a mirror very close to you, so you get to see all your imperfections, every single one of them. And man, if you're not ready to look in that mirror, oh, can it be really, really jarring and really, really irritating? At the same time, if you think about it, like let's say two people are in a relationship, they're sitting in traffic and the driver gets cut off. Well, you suddenly get more angry if the other person's in the car with you or less angry. And that's your mirror. If you get less angry than if you were alone, that means the person next to you projects calmness. So you kind of learn and kind of get that energy from them and say, oh yeah, I don't get as angry. But if you're alone in the car and somebody cuts you off and you start swearing and you're ready to road rage, it's like, oh, okay. So that the mirror is not there to show you calmness, so you're not really picking up on that. And I think that's really where we learn a lot from relationships. We learn to mirror some behaviors that others have. For example, stay calm when you're getting cut off in traffic, or don't get that upset when somebody's mean to you or rude, or show love when somebody is sad. You pick up on those emotions, but also on the mirrors. And then you see other things. For example, I can be perfectly calm and my partner gets really mad when somebody cuts me off. I'm like, I don't care. Whatever. They can go first. They probably need to use a wet bathroom really badly. Like they really need to use a bathroom. Like, let them go first. That's okay. It's not a big deal. Where she's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. So it's interesting because then she can look at me and like, how are you so calm? I'm like, I don't know, they probably need, there's some reason why they cut me off. It's not that important. And then in the future, she then mirrors that as well. The one thing I wanted to share about lessons, and it's a personal experience from many, many years ago before this relationship. I was in a more tumultuous relationship. And my partner at the time had a brother who had some substance use abuse issues, and the family got together to do an intervention. So they invited me to sit through the intervention. So we all gathered on couches in the room, and we brought the brother in, and they all sat around in a circle and started sharing stories about how much they loved him and wanted to get help. And I just remember having almost an out of body experience at that point, kind of looking at myself and saying, this isn't for me. This isn't my path. This has nothing to do with me. I don't want this experience in my life. I don't feel like I need to learn this lesson. This is not my lesson to learn. So as I sat there through the thing and supported this partner at that time in the relationship, but I walked away from it saying, yeah, I don't feel this emotion. If this is your family, it's your other self that's suffering. I understand it, but it's not my lesson. I don't need to go through this. I don't need to go chase people, at 2 a.m. to try to find them so they don't hurt themselves. This isn't for me. And it was really interesting to recognize that, to say, that's not my life lesson. This wasn't meant for me. I can walk away from it and it's okay. And they can have that lesson, but I don't have to be there for that. I don't have to involve myself in that lesson, because
But
not
did
all of
you
it,
leave in the middle of it?
no, I let them finish. It'd be very rude to leave in the middle, and that would encourage the brother to also leave. So I waited till it was over. But then they wanted to do a second. I was like, no, I'm okay, thank you. I left the relationship shortly after to say, this wasn't for me. This was not something I needed to experience in my life. And I thanked them for it. And it was, we parted ways in a positive way, but it was more, your life, your paths, your lessons don't align with where I'm going. Thank you. I'm moving away now. So kind of food for thought is, if you do find yourself in lessons that feel like they're not meant for you, it's okay to walk away from them. You don't have to sit there and witness everything. You don't have to be involved in everything. Some are just meant for other people, not you.
That's a powerful lesson, and I'm sure it must have been something that you learned a lot from, being able to walk away from something like that you knew was not for you. A lot more that I'm sure we could unpack in this passage, but I think we've got another one on this subject, couple we could look at. Anybody have any thoughts on anything on this passage before we take a look at another couple?
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think, Jonathan.
About this passage?
Yeah.
I think the thing that really stuck out for me the most was that part where they said in the second paragraph in blue, a number of entities may witness the same exchange of experience and respond by feeling a variety of responses. I think as I, reflect on all the things that I see happening, in this country at this time of a political or social nature, I'm just reminded all the time that, man, you can have 1,000 people looking at exactly the same thing on a TV screen or whatever, and they're seeing it 1,000 different ways. And something that I interpret as being obviously black, somebody else is interpreting as being obviously white or red or green. And it's like, it's just something I have struggled, I think, to come to terms with a lot in the last few years, as many people have. But I think I'm getting a little bit better at accepting, that's just the way it is. And it's not my job to make other people see things the way I see them, or to agree with the things I agree with. It's been a difficult thing for me to let go of, but I think I'm getting a little better at it. I don't know. Anybody else have any experiences like that in terms of people seeing the same thing very different ways?
You're all wrong. Only I know the right way. No,
Of course.
no, you're absolutely right. It's hard to see it happen and to be able to have that attachment, or that understanding, and then taking that witness stand almost to say, I'm not going to get involved. I will witness this. I will see it, and I would let it happen, whatever that is, good, bad, however I perceive it, if it's good or bad, because it can be very different from other people's perspectives, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of the conflict. I think I realize it's just hard for me to talk about politics or getting into any of that without getting triggered and without getting drawn into the conflict, which really only serves to escalate the conflict, and that is clearly not in anybody's interest. So I'm getting better at refraining from entering the battle, shall we say. Thanks for asking, though. Appreciate it. Did anybody else have anything wanted to share on this passage before we move on? Cool. So on July 28th, 1985, Quo said, "This mirroring effect is the effect that occurs when one sees within another self those characteristics that are loved and accepted, and those that are not loved and not accepted. In truth, these are the characteristics of the self which are loved or not loved, and are those characteristics which outline the lessons and services that the entity has designed into the life pattern from the pre-incarnational state. And on October 13th, 2009, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, "The work that you do spiritually is not so much about others as it is about yourself. When you become able to gaze into such catalysts with gratitude and thanksgiving, you are free of the fear and the anger and other negative emotions that will close your heart. And as you love that shadow in yourself, you find that you can gaze for the first time at such an entity that is attempting to harm you, and you are then able to see past the mirroring effect to the unity betwixt you and the other self and the Creator. Each time that you dismantle a trigger and instead gaze at the Creator within one who is blessing you by attempting to do you harm, you become calmer and stronger and more able to see the truth beyond the illusions of the mirrors that are so distorted and so shadowed." It seems to go pretty well with what we were just talking about with triggers and such like that. Andy, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I think this works so well. I found like recently, as I've been stepping more and more into mental isolation and working on myself, that when you've got triggers, when you've got people who annoy you, then and you see past that, for some reason their behavior, like you start off by tolerating it, and then you see that actually there's nothing to tolerate. And if I can keep my heart open, I realize that if I'm not absorbing their own negativity and trying to reflect it back onto them, gradually it's like they've got nothing to bounce that energy off, and then it doesn't happen around me. But then having said that, like I wish mirrors were more straightforward. I wish like whatever triggered me, it's like some people say, oh, whatever annoys you, it's just a shadow, and you've got the same thing within yourself that you don't want to face. And I kind of wish that was that straightforward, because that must work the opposite way as well, because it's like, there's some people who just like are radiant, and I'm like, oh, I wish that was my shadow, and that radiance. But it's not all, like maybe like very deep down, very hidden, I have like a tiny spark of that radiance, but most of the time I'm just like,
Minuscule spark.
yeah, really like irritable asshole,
Yeah. That's my spark. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's just keeping the heart open is so powerful. And I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it. But also I've also found that like when I've had difficulty recently, I've asked for protection when I've been around, you know, people who carry negativity. And in the past, I've always fought myself and saying, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I accept them? But recently, I got to the point where I would say a prayer if I knew I was going to encounter such a person, and say, protect me from their negativity. And it completely works. And then when it worked, I was like praying and asking, like, how come I didn't have this protection before? You know, and the answer came to me, it's because you've never asked. And I was like, okay, it's that simple. Just ask.
That's a fucked up way to run a university.
Like,
I would have
imagine
saved your life, but you didn't ask. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what you're saying about the open heart and the love, because I think that is something that I continue to grapple with. There are so many things that can close the heart, but I do realize, at least intellectually, that if I can keep my heart open, there's no room for love. There's no room for hate. It's just a matter of willing myself to that point and taking it from the head to the heart, I suppose. Andrea, any thoughts, reflections on anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, we don't know each other very much, but I can guarantee you, and take this to the bank if you want, a million percent guarantee, you have a very bright spark. I would say yourself, you're like a lighthouse, and you know how the lighthouse light goes around in circles. But after years and years, the lighthouse, if you don't wash the windows, they get really gunked up and it's hard to see it. It's basically just that. The more you wash the gunk off, the more the light's going to shine through. You don't have to work on it or fan the flames or any of that shenanigans. It's on. You're alive, you're here, your soul's, riding and having fun. You just have way too many years of stuff built up in the background. And as you work through it, that is going to shine more and more. So don't worry about your shadow self. There's no such thing in that sense. It's more just, wiping and doing the kung fu kid thing where it's like wax on, wax off. So just got to do a lot more of that. But yeah, I'll say take that to the bank if you want. That's guaranteed. One thing I find interesting is about the mirroring piece. Is like I said earlier, like you get these behaviors from other people, and you see, like Andy said, you see somebody act like that, and you're like, I want to be like that. I want to be Zen. I want to be radiant and happy and joyful and all this thing, so that things don't bother me. But you have to have that perspective. Like if you, let's say, if you look outside to another person and they're an angry, miserable person, you now have an idea of what an angry, miserable person is like, and you're like, I don't want that. But if you don't see that person, how would you know what you want to be? Right? It's kind of like having taken away from the negative, right? So you have to see some negative in order to know what the positive is. If there's no such contrast, if there's no mirrors that show us the other parts of our potential, we can all go out there and murder somebody today. Do we want to? Heck no, 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 please don't do that. But we have that potential, we can defend our family and, hurt somebody else, but we don't want to. And it's having that, contrast and seeing other people or other selves doing that. And we go, ooh, I don't want that. I don't like those consequences, or that doesn't really suit me. I'm not going to wear that dress. I'm not going to wear those pants. I'm not going to become that person. But we need that contrast, right? Without it, it'd be pretty boring because we'd all be, drinking the Kool-Aid and happy kumbaya. And that's like fourth density, we'll get there where we all love each other and there's no more hate or anything like that. But in the meantime, we need that contrast to kind of figure out where we land, where do we sit on the scale. And I think that's the interesting thing about mirrors is it gives you that contrast without you having to go experience these things. You get to see that in other people and go, ugh, yes, I never want to do that. I never want to cheat on somebody. That seems like not something that suits my current body incarnation. Ooh, I don't want to become a billionaire and, technocrat and like murder people. Not really my thing this incarnation. Maybe next one. This one's I'm good. Oh, I don't like that either. I want to be a dictator. I want to, I want to just be this. I want to do this for now. So yeah, we try on different suits and different images that we might like to do this incarnation, and eventually one lands with that. They were like, "Oh, I think this was the clothes I was meant to wear. These are the lessons that I wanted to. Oh yeah, this feels more aligned. Okay, yeah, let me follow this thread." But that's where
Yeah.
we need the other ones.
Yeah, fascinating way to look at it. And I think as I was reading that first sentence about one sees within another self those characteristics that are loved and accepted and those that are not loved and not accepted, I don't think I had really thought of it quite in the way that you're talking about in terms of seeing somebody who's showing you things that you don't want to be so you can see, well, that's not the kind of person that I want to be, or seeing somebody that is, oh, that is the kind of person I want to be. That makes perfect sense to me, and I'm sure we do that all the time. Michael, any thoughts, reflections to add?
Oh man, right now I'm just enjoying being a fly on the wall in this conversation. Just Andy, you are radiating just so much like authenticity and like vulnerability, and just like the way you're just talking through your thoughts is just like, yes, I love that. And then Andrea, you're just like so quick with just, I don't know, your mind works really sharp. So right now I'm just loving just mirroring with these mirrors right here, and just like seeing what I do love about the people in this group. So I'm just basking in that energy right now. So I will continue to bask in it.
Yeah, and as I said to you before we started recording, I picked the three of you as panelists because I just figured this would be a fun conversation. This would be a fun group of people to hang with, and you have not disappointed. Does anybody have anything to add before we look at a couple passages on a different topic?
I guess I will add that I think it's important with when you do have triggers and stuff, not to repress and push down these things, because that's how they're going to be distorted and they're going to work through your chakra system in a way that is abusive. And if you see yourself as a victim, like at some point you're going to become the abuser. Like that is just the evolution of being of the victim kind of consciousness state. So just like seeing those triggers and just acknowledging them, and like everything is energy. And like if you're having a lot of energy from a trigger, you can use that energy to transform and push you towards where you want to go in life. So I mean, just don't run away from your triggers. Just accept it as a lot of energy that is incoming inside of you, and then use that energy productively. So
Yeah, that can often be the most difficult part, even realizing that you have a trigger. Once you have a trigger, then maybe it's a little bit easier to work with it and dismantle it. But I think for me, at least in my case, a lot of times I don't even realize I have the trigger until I'm angry and upset about something. It seems to be happening a lot. And that's when I figure, oh, okay, there's something. Do you work with it in terms of your energy centers, Michael, in terms of triggers and blockages of energy centers?
When I'm being conscious about it, of course, but a lot of times I'll get caught off guard with triggers. I noticed a new one the other day when I was really excited to tell my partner something, and I had all this energy, and I was excited to tell him, and then they came with like a skeptical kind of energy back towards me, and then that triggered me to like all the energy that I had to be excited about turned to more of like a combative kind of thing. So it's like I didn't really see how that energy flipped in that moment, but then after meditating on that, I was like, oh, I just had a lot of energy about something I was excited about, and I just transferred that into like more kind of an attacky kind of energy towards my partner when I didn't get the response that I wanted back from them from telling them something that I was excited about. So now I'm way more conscious of my own feelings, even when it is like happy, like expressive, good feelings that I'm feeling. But those can easily be switched, and maybe that's how like the negative 6 density switches really quickly to the positive 6 density. It's just like there's just something that is a catalyst there, and it just flips you to the other side. So that
What a great example.
It'll do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm guessing all of us go through similar things in communications or miscommunications with our partners and such. And I think that is one thing that I've really appreciated about the Law of One, because I mean, I'm relatively new to it. I only discovered the Law of One, like so many others, about 5 years ago during the COVID quarantining. And I had never really learned about chakras or energy centers before. So this is all relatively new to me, but I found it super helpful in looking at the meanings of each energy center and looking where those blockages might be happening. And I guess mainly in terms of the green ray and the open heart or closed heart, as it were. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Andy, Andrea, any thoughts on any of that stuff before we look at something else? That's good. Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on what has been referred to as Hall of Mirrors. On March 4th, 2005, Quo said, "When someone does express negative emotion to you, there is more emotion there than simple hostility. There is truth. It is the kind of truth that you see in a hall of mirrors at midway of a carnival. There are no mirrors that show you a true image in such a hall of mirrors. Every mirror is crazed. Some create a tall and slender S, others create a short and fat S. Some warp you to the right and some warp you to the left. Some make wavy lines through your entire image so that your eyes and your nose and your mouth do not match up, and your neck is at one side of your torso at another, and your leg off on another side again. How can these images be helpful? That is the question we ask you. How can the crazed and incorrect images of negative emotion directed towards you be helpful?" It is a brave and stalwart soul who is willing to look into that question, to look into the nuances and the subtleties of other entities with whom you have crossed paths, and whose reaction to you is, in fact, a projection of their own process. And may we say that in every situation, no matter how much distortion that there is in that entity's reaction to you, and in that hostility that is unfair and unjust, nevertheless, there lies material to be mined in the quiet of one's own thoughts all the time. For each and every image of you that appears to you is pregnant with information. Perhaps some of this information drags you where you would rather not go, into the shadow side of self that brings before you material that is painful. The injustice and unfairness of such images of the self that they project, from another whose reactions to you are negative is seemingly completely incorrect. Yet, in that moment of interpenetration of the two energy bodies, there is sacredness if you are willing to accept the challenge of sitting in sacred space with such unhappy and unjust colors, shapes, and images. I don't think I've ever actually been in all of mirrors at the carnival, and yet I'm familiar with the metaphor, and I think it's just really fascinating, the idea that everyone presents these wildly distorted images of ourselves and that we are trying to learn from it because, as they said, each and every image of you that appears to you is pregnant with information. Super fascinating, especially in looking at people that we have issues with. Andrea, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Too many, like a hall of mirrors. I guess to start off is, we're 7 billion people, I think, on this earth at this point, or something. There's lots of billions, many billions of people on this earth.
8, I think.
8 billion. Okay, we don't have the time to look at everybody. To put it mildly, right? You interact when you go in traffic or you go to the grocery store, you meet probably close to 300 people that come, in your eyesight or just line of sight, or you hear or you interact with. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to like think, oh, that person that was in the corner of my eye, I wonder what lesson they had for me, or I wonder how they reflected it. It's less about how everybody person you interact with, but more around the ones that do trigger you or the ones that kind of stand out. Or and the interesting part about this, what I find, is when they talk about unjust and unfair, that is such a human concept. That doesn't exist. It's just energy, right? Somebody's just doing something. You're the one that's taken it personal and now is offended, and thou shall offend you for the rest of your generations, and curse your grandparents and your kids and whatever. Like it's just justice, and fairness is such a human thing. And if you go to another part of the world, then it's not the same justice and it's not the same fairness, right? Those are social constructs, and they change depending on which country you are and which generation you are. So putting that all aside, what I take away from this is we as humans forget a lot. Like we cannot remember everything that we've done. We are on autopilot quite a lot of times. So when something triggers us, I think for me, I take that as a moment of like, oh, this person was rude to me. I wonder why I'm upset. Oh, I think I've been rude to other people in the past as well. If I really dig down deep, I can find a time where I was dismissive towards somebody. I was rude to somebody. I cut somebody off in traffic. I flipped a bird to somebody. I did something to somebody else that I forgot, because I like to forget things. We tend to put these things away aside. We take the last sugar off the shelf and walk away when the person next to us was looking for it, because we didn't think about it. It was just like, whatever, it did not register. But when somebody does that to us, it's suddenly like, oh, how dare you? So that's a moment to take that moment of reflection and say, oh, have I done that? And could I do that? And oh, I'm sorry I did that. Okay, I will be more mindful when I am doing those situations and see if I can do better and be better to my other selves. Because at that point, you have the past you, so the one that did the aggression, and then the future you, the one that is suffering the aggression. So you have like both sides of that mirror to go, oh, I see how that felt. That was not fun. And I'm not saying everything obviously is the same. Like somebody murdered your family members doesn't mean you murdered somebody else. Let's say, don't take that to the extreme. But I find it's that interesting like reflection to go, I wonder if there's something that I forgot that I also did something like that. Oh, that's why it doesn't sit nicely, because I didn't like how that felt. I did that to somebody else, and that kind of came back to me, and I have to think about it and feel it and just process it and let it go and just go, okay, that was not love. I now know what love is. Let me move on with love. So food for thought.
Yeah, a lot of food for thought. And it reminds me of a Raw passage that I think we've got coming up where they're saying that not having you can accomplish more work, more progress by working with other cells than you could by yourself. Because trying to do things by yourself is like working without mirrors, because people mirror back to you those very things, positive and negative, that we need to work through for growth. So you're ahead of your time again. Michael, anything to add? Thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, just like the mirrors are helping you see like blind spots. Like you're saying, if you're just working by yourself, consciously by yourself, yes, you can achieve a lot. But I mean, definitely having people around you to reflect things back at you and trigger you and take you down different ways that you didn't think you're going to go mentally. That's just helping you see your blind spots. And I think a lot of times unconsciously, when we are just on autopilot, we're kind of just like quick to blame. And it's just like a very lazy way of just like handling a situation, just to say, oh, you're the problem, you're the one that needs to change. When of course, everybody's on a path of evolution and nobody's done yet. But at the same time, it's just like, what can you do to see them in a better light and still see the creator within them, no matter what level of a consciousness that they're at. So it's like, that's kind of the main goal that I'm trying to get to, is just like always seeing the creator in everybody, no matter what they're expressing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of a passage I read a while ago, I think, where Quo said something to the effect that it's only the veil of forgetting that makes it even possible to love one person more than another, or to like find somebody distasteful or whatever. Otherwise, we would be seeing each other as reflections of the one infinite creator, and there just wouldn't be any possible disharmony. So it is just one of those maddening things that I guess goes with third density, as we try to figure that out from behind the veil. Any tips, Andy, on how to deal with any of that stuff? Or anything else? Any other thoughts you have?
Yeah, I mean, it is really useful, I think, to look at the mirror and say, well, you know, is this karmic? Is it a reflection of me? But another way I found to use mirrors is to, and like, I found this way of using it so powerful in terms of healing. So for instance, when someone does something that hurts you or seems in like really unjust or whatever, what I started to realize was that actually it's such a precious gift, because when I was able to take that and look at myself, not in terms of, well, have I done the same in the past, but in terms of, right, which aspect of myself is not comfortable with this? Which aspect of myself is angry or hurt or sad or whatever, and what I realized that is that whatever reaction you have to this mirror is not the mirror that's triggering it. Well, it is sort of, but it's already there within you, and you've kept it hidden from yourself. And this thing that's happened, that this other person's done, has brought it out. And it's like, wow, thank you for showing me this part of me that needed healing. And so, like, lately, in the past few months, I've been sort of isolating myself. And I was talking to another seeker recently, and he was saying, yeah, he's sort of found the desire to do the same. And we both agreed that, like, suddenly you get emotions, like really intense emotions, but then there's no logical cause or reason, like there's just like a sudden urge of anger or a sudden urge of love, or sudden, strong feelings of hope or despair. And they're kind of nebulous, and there's no, oh, it's because of this and because of that. And they're just all aspects of ourselves that deserve to manifest for whatever period of time you need to. And I think most of us go through life without actually communing with these aspects of ourselves. And by having these mirrors, it's like, right, that needs expression, that needs to be acknowledged and honored. So
Yeah, and I would imagine a lot of that goes to repressed memories from maybe childhood, things that traumatized us or that left deep impressions on us that we've kind of repressed and haven't really dealt with until something decades later triggers it to come up to surface. I think that has been the case for me, for sure. Anybody else have any thoughts, reflections? I had another passage on Hall of Mirrors to look at. Anybody have any thoughts on this one before we move on? Yes. This is from March 29th, 1992, and Quo says, "This little experience of life, my friends, is set about like a gaudy gem, full of brilliance, but quite without the purity of true crystallization. The lives you experience consciously are rhinestones, false and beautiful, part of a complex series of illusions of dreams within dreams. Is the Creator therefore the carnival master who delights in fooling his sons and daughters? We do not believe this to be so. We believe that every puzzlement, every confusion, every distortion that is part of the house of mirrors that is perceived life is given to you that you may have pain and pleasure and great intensity, so that you may look at the distortions and say to yourself, what lies behind this distorted mirror? If I had a true mirror, what would this experience be?" I love that part in the middle where they're saying that every puzzlement, every confusion, every distortion that is part of the house of mirrors is given to you so that you may have pain and pleasure and great intensity. Pain and pleasure and great intensity, that should be the slogan on the door to third density before you come in. Prepare to experience great pleasure and great pain. Really is something. Any thoughts on anything here, Michael?
Yeah, it seems like the great intensity of pain and pleasure is just like pushing you to, I don't know, just have this intense amount of emotion to process things and dig deeper. You know, it's like that's what's feeding the seeker within inside of you at some point. It's like at first you're just like seeking pleasure and running away from pain, but then as you go deeper into it, more and more experiences, it's just like I see an image of like a caterpillar just having experience and just eating things, and then going into that cocoon phase that you might be talking about right now, Andy, and just like internalizing the things that you have been experiencing in life. And then that's how you metamorphosize and grow into like the butterfly, and then to start the whole process again. So I'm just like, everything's just experience and externalizing things and then taking them within and yeah, seeing what you transform into after that. So
What a great metaphor. Yeah, definitely had not thought of that, but that makes perfect sense. And I guess would explain why they keep talking about meditation, meditation, meditation as a way to take all of those experiences that you're talking about, all those catalysts, and to reflect on them and contemplate them and process them and balance them, I suppose. Anything to add, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, the one infinite creator is one sadistic fucker, isn't he? Or her? I don't know.
Does seem that way sometimes. Yeah. The
But
carnival master who delights in fooling his children.
yeah, but yeah, I think pain and pleasure, when we meditate on it, they're just sensations. They're just, like Michael said, they're just experiences, and without that judgment, they're just like passing clouds, really, aren't they? But passing clouds can also be really beautiful, and they can be things that we can wonder at.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and I suppose one could say you need the clouds as much as the sunshine, all the changes of seasons and weather to be sure. Andrea, anything to add?
We should have all read the terms and conditions a lot more before signing up for this, just saying. I'm sure there was multiple pages of legalese or cosmic-ese that we didn't read. We're just like, it's fine. It'll be fine. We'll just wing it. Yeah, we're not winging it. We're totally winging
It seemed so easy at that time. Yeah.
For sure. The one thing for me that kind of stands out for this is, so this is Andrea's nose. This is Andrea's hand. This is Andrea's other hand. This is Andrea's finger. This is Andrea's cheek. It's still part of Andrea. We are one. All right. So I am part of the creator. I am the creator. You guys are part of the creator. You are the creator. So it's not one entity or one God or one thing out there going, ha 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 ha, suckers. It's actually us, our higher selves, that are sitting on the other side and having a hoot You know, it's kind of like when you throw a whole bunch of improv actors on a scene and you don't tell them what to do, and then like the audience is laughing at them. We're the audience on the other side, laughing at ourselves. We're the stage hands in the background throwing props at each other, like, oh, here's a car accident for you, screech. Let's see how you handle that. But it's all us, So we're the ones doing this to ourselves. We're the ones not only signing up for it, but also the ones who are choosing these lessons, who are choosing these catalysts, who are like, hey, this incarnation, I'm gonna work on this thing that I haven't figured out yet. Cool. Let me go do a lot of that thing, and it's gonna be a lot of pain, but I'm choosing it. So the one thing for me that stands out here is less the creator as a one. It's more we are doing it to ourselves. We are choosing this, and I think it gives you more of that control back to ourselves to feel that it's something that we've chosen. It's within our control, and it's less this third party entities, cosmic woo woo out there that's just like pulling the strings without us, having any control. No, we signed up for this and we chose these things. So let's just work through it. Let's get it over with in a sense. Let's enjoy it while we can. But know that it's not out there to make it pain and make it rain. It's really out there for our choices that we were like, hey, this is be an interesting lifetime. How about we try this? That'll be fun. It wasn't. As the actor on scene, it's not that much fun. But for the rest of us, it's cool to see how it works out. So that's my only food for thought for this one.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. As you're speaking, I was reminded of a episode from the original Star Trek series for anyone who ever watched that stuff from a long time ago. There was an episode called Shore Leave where the crew of the Enterprise gets to go on this planet for shore leave, and they just notice that terrible things start happening. They're thinking of all these negative things, and like there's like wild animals attacking them. There's people from their past who they had fights with coming back, and there's other terrible things that are happening. And they only discover at the very end that they're basically on an amusement park planet, and the planet was designed so that it would read your thoughts and then it would manifest whatever you were thinking. So they just kept thinking of bad things happening, and so bad things kept happening. But it could have easily gone the other way. If they just had thought of beautiful things, then they would have got to experience that. So kind of going along with the pain and pleasure and great intensity, as they're saying, and kind of what you're saying of, you get to create and co-create whatever happens in your life. So if you just keep thinking of negative things, then it's probably going to keep happening. And if you try, you can have some fun here. There's a lot of great fun on this planet to be had, but it definitely takes a little bit of effort, I suppose, to make it happen. Lovely discussion as always. Anybody had any thoughts on anything before we change topics? Look at a couple other passages. Let's take a look at a couple passages on something that we've already alluded to, and that is mirrors and shadow work. On October 13th, 2009, Quo said, "When one is incarnation, one feels very alone and isolated within his flesh and bones. It is our opinion that the actual spiritual truth is that you are never alone. Rather, you are in a world of mirrors. Everyone whom you meet mirrors back to you yourself in one aspect or another. How inconvenient to see aspects of yourself that are unattractive." That line always makes me crack up. "And yet it is helpful to realize that even the most disturbing or difficult relationship offers you a chance to see a part of yourself that you have not looked at least not in that way. Your opportunity here is to look straight into that mirror and say, 'Thank you. I will seek after that shadow part of myself, that self that looks like this, and I will love it, and I will accept it, and I will hold it to me in my heart until it has been redeemed by my love.'" And on November 6, 2009, Quo said, "Each looks into the mirror of the other's perceptions and begins to see all of those parts of the self that the self least wishes to see. That is because it is a very positive and helpful function of the community that is operating on a spiritual level to help each other to grow closer to the one infinite creator. And the way that this is done is by bringing up all those lost sheep of the self, all these parts of self that are not redeemed, loved, and accepted." Yeah, we've did an episode on shadow work a while ago, and shadow work just seems to come up so often in various channeling sessions, and here certainly seems appropriate as we're talking about mirrors. And I think maybe the part that I'm having the most difficulty with is at the end of the first paragraph, where you look into the mirror and say, "Thank you. I'll seek after that shadow part of myself, that self that looks like this, love it, accept it, and hold it to me in my heart until it has been redeemed by my love." I definitely understand, I guess, at least on an intellectual level, that, yeah, a big part of where we're at right now is about not pushing away those entities we see as shadow selves, but rather embracing them and integrating them and allowing them to make us whole. I think I'm just still having difficulty with those selves that I feel like I think I need to draw boundaries instead and say, you know what? I just do not vibe with you. And until I can vibe better with you, I think it's better if we stay separate. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Andy? Similar situations or different situations or whatever else?
Yeah, I think Quo does talk a lot about discernment as well. So I think what you're saying is valid. Um, and also like with shadow work, the way I see it is like, well, I've got to love the asshole in myself so that I can love the assholes out there, and God, there are so many, right? But until like I can embrace my inner asshole, it will be really difficult. And it brings to mind, like when you look at yourself, let's say you look at like maybe a video or a journal entry that you wrote and years ago and you cringe and it's like, oh my God, I did that. Ugh. Sometimes it's like that, when you look at someone behaving in a way that makes you cringe, or it's good for me anyway to remember, well, that was once me. But then at the same time with discernment, it's like, well, I've moved on and I'm now in a different space and I'm doing something else, and maybe I'm not strong enough to deal with that energy, or maybe I've moved on from it, but I need to sort of hold space for this other game that I'm playing now. I find I really struggle with like a particular type of personality that enjoys sort of dominating, and like that needs to feel superior, and my struggle has been sort of you know not reacting, drawing boundaries, and that's been really hard until fairly recently, when I realized that actually, if I can open my heart, they don't even bother doing that in front of me because they don't have the audience. And at some level, they know. I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass now. Sorry.
Embrace the inner asshole. Embracing the
Yeah,
inner asshole. The
exactly.
Andy Burr
Yeah.
story. That's going to be the title of your autobiography, I think.
Yeah, gotta love the inner asshole to love the outer, all the assholes out there. And we're all assholes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and it's not like I have thought about any of this stuff a lot. I'm kind of figuring this out as we go too. I think as you were speaking, I'm reminded of people who are perhaps in abusive relationships, and you can still love the person you're in an abusive relationship without allowing them to abuse you. You can still walk away from an abusive relationship. You don't have to keep doing that because the other person is one infinite creator. I think maybe there's that level of discernment that you're talking about. Andrew, did you have any thoughts on this or anything else?
Yeah, for sure. So first I want to share a mantra that I've been kind of meditating on that's been really helpful to me, to look at those other selves, and especially the ones that I don't necessarily agree with in terms of what they're doing, or how they're harming other selves. So I say, thank you for playing your part. I remember who you are and I meet you in love. So it's acknowledging that they are part of the infinite creator. So I'm just like myself. They are playing a part just like I am. So if I'm playing the part of a lighthouse or a fire or a happy go-getter or whatever, they're playing another part. And that part is to be the jerk, to be the asshole, to be the dictator, the murderer, the whatever that is. they chose to play that part. They're doing a sacrifice so that the infinite creator can learn more about itself. It's not something I would choose. I'm not putting my hand up to do that part. No, thank you. But somebody is. And I recognize that in them. I don't have to agree with what they do, but I meet them in love because we are still the same. We are one. So that's been my meditation. That's kind of helped give a little bit of space in terms of looking at the people that or things that are happening that are really in a negative light, but seeing them as a not necessarily positive, because it's still a lot of pain, it's a lot of suffering, it's a lot of catalysts out there right now. So not to take away from that, but more to recognize that it's a part that's being played. It's another self, and that other self will eventually become one. So it's okay. It's going to be okay, and just recognize that. In terms of the shadow self, and I find it funny, just as Andy was talking about ourselves and our asshole, inner asshole. Um, you know, sometimes we are mirrors for others as well. We talk about ourselves a lot because not because we're self-centered or we're all about serving ourselves, but we talk about how to improve ourselves. Well, you know what though? That bad part of you, that inner jerk, the one that flips the bird when you get cut off in traffic, the one that loses their temper and gets snappy, you are a mirror to somebody else. And that's okay too. It's okay to have that shadow self. It's okay to love it. It's okay to let it out. Sometimes, you are sometimes that catalyst that the other person needs to see and go, oh, I don't want to be like that jerk. I don't want to act like that. Right. So you are also a mirror for others. And as much as we try to, improve ourselves and become the just and angel singing and everything. Sometimes we're not, and that's okay. That's our path to work through it. And we're not going to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect because the parts of us that do crack, those are the parts that we're going to remember. Just like I'm not religious at all. But when we talk about Jesus and all of the amazing things he does, what's lacking in the Bible is when was he a jerk? When did he stub his toe and say fuck? Because that makes him
When was
relatable to
Jesus
us.
an asshole? Yeah.
Right. That makes him relatable to us. And that makes us go, I like the positive things of him. I'm going to be like him. The negative things, whatever. I'm sure he worked through his stuff as well. I'm sure as a kid, he didn't like somebody stealing his toys. But as he grew up and as he got older, he learned all these, he kind of found himself and found who he wants to be, his path. And then that got positive. And then the negative parts, we didn't really see them much. But when they did show, and I'm sure they did, he got hungry, he got stubbed his toe, things happen, he said ow and just eventually. We don't see those, but I'm sure if we did, we'd be like, I get you. I too stub my toe and I say I'm angry at the furniture. I too do whatever or drop a knife and cut myself and go, God damn it. Right. So yeah, I think keeping that shadow self and working through it, but also letting it be there. It's okay if it stays there because it's a mirror to somebody else.
Indeed. Yeah, and if Ra is to believe, then Jesus did, in fact, take the life of a young child when he was a child himself in a fit of anger and spent the rest of his life trying to balance the karma from that. I don't know if it was just because he was hungry and had low blood sugar or if he was
He's
just
angry.
yeah, I guess he had to be there. But yeah. Michael, anything to add? Oh, I think your mic might be muted.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was also thinking about Jesus quote. So it was like funny how it's just popping up. But I was just going with the kind of love your enemies quote. It's just like, which was so kind of unheard of at the time, to like love your enemies. Like what? But also seeing that as the shadow part of yourself. And when I look at this line that says, thank you, I will seek after the shadow part of myself. It's like you're consciously looking for the hatred and all the asshole parts of you, and then trying to love and accept them, and then use that to become a better person of understanding the other selves, So yeah, I just like that idea of seeking after the shadow part of myself. And I think I'm just going to meditate on that and what that really means.
For sure. Yeah, one thing I can say for sure is that we have said the word asshole more times in this episode than in any other episode so far. So we got that going for us, if nothing else. Yeah, really appreciate the thoughts, and I'm sure seeking after the shadow self is certainly not something I have really made a point of consciously. I just seem to find it without having to search very hard for it. But yeah, I think there's one other thing that kind of came to mind as we were talking about this, and this was how On one hand, I think Kuo has said that as we are making that transition into fourth density, because fourth density has more light, more truth, more information to it, we're really being forced to confront with all the shadow things that up until now we were able to sweep under the rug or stuff into the closet. But we really can't hide from that anymore, and we kind of need to confront that. And I think that is certainly something I see happening around me, both immediately and on the larger scale as well. But, I was also thinking about that, what I was talking about in terms of needing set boundaries and choosing who one associates with and such. I think maybe part of that transition of fourth density could be finding those individuals that you really vibe with most and connecting with them and grouping together and helping each other as well. And maybe the separation of self from others that you don't really seem to vibe with could be likened to taking liquids of different densities, different colors, and pouring them into a tall, skinny glass where they just kind of naturally sort themselves out. I think, like I said, I can think of individuals that I think our vibrations are just not particularly compatible with, and I don't feel obligated to hang out with them or to be friends with them. But I can still love them. I still love them as another self and another creator. I just don't find our vibrations to be particularly compatible. So I don't know. I don't really know if I had any point to that. I think I just felt like sharing that and seems relevant. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or anything before we take a look at a couple other passages? Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. And like if you, according to the Bible, even Jesus, like he got to the temple and he like sort of had a tantrum at the money changers and the people outside because they weren't appropriate to that space. He's like not I don't think he was against like people making money and trying to make a profit to survive or whatever. It's just like not appropriate to that particular space. And with people as well, if there's a group of children and they just want to play and then someone comes in and says, right, you shouldn't be playing, you should be studying, but they're in the playground, it's like, no, actually bugger off, like, we'll be learning when we're in the classroom, but this is the playground.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've heard different ways of interpreting the flipping of the tables, and certainly him having a temper tantrum is one thing I've heard. And I think I've also heard other ways that he was really doing what was called a prophetic act, and he was acting out something that was described in Isaiah or something else, basically calling out the authorities for using a place of worship as a place to hide the terrible things that they were doing to the poor and the foreigners and the widows and the children and everything else. We can save that discussion for another time, but suffice it to say, yeah, I think, again, it kind of comes back to what I was thinking about, setting boundaries. I think for many of us, that is one of the lessons that we came here to learn, which was how to set boundaries and how to enforce boundaries, not with hate, not with anger, but with love can still be done. Andrea?
Yeah, and just the last thing to that, and Andy, you brought up a good point. If somebody's having a temper tantrum and this is the first time you're seeing that person, the only interaction you have with that person is watching them have a temper tantrum or whatever it is would be considered a shadow self. You'd be like, "Oh, that is a very bad person. No, I don't want anything to do with them." But that doesn't mean that's who the whole person is. And the same thing for ourselves when we judge ourselves. We've done bad things or bad in quotation things or things we're not proud of, things we don't love. Cool, let's work on that. But at the same time, that's not who we are, right? We have all these other things that we've done, and we are such a comprehensive piece of our soul and our chakras. That one thing is not reflective of 100% who we are, so let's not take it as such.
Well said. Well said. Michael, did you have anything to add before we take a look at a couple other passages?
No, yeah, let's continue.
Sounds good. This is a passage about Blu-ray that I believe Andrea actually suggested. This was from December 21st, 2019. Quo said, "In order to unblock the blue ray, which has the opportunity to share the love and light of the one creator fully and freely with those about one, it is oftentimes helpful, when some blockage of this blue ray occurs, to look at the other self that has caused the difficulty or irritation as the self. Thusly, one looks into a mirror and sees a portion of the self which is yet unbalanced within the self, and act upon the irritation as if it had been created by the self, and for the movement along the spiritual path, by the balancing or resolving of the irritation through contemplation and meditation. These tools then can show the one who feels the irritation the sense of the portion of the self which has become irritated, and the portion of the self which has created the irritation. When it can be seen that these two selves are one, then there can become within the self a healing or a balancing of the irritation, so that it becomes, instead of an irritation, an invitation to move further along the acceptance of the self that is so necessary in order for the blue ray to shine most brilliantly within the conscious seeker of truth." Yeah, fascinating passage. And I always appreciate bringing back to the energy centers, since we are not so much a physical body as an energy body. And so much of what we're experiencing this incarnation really has to do with learning to let that energy flow from the one infinite creator through all of our energy centers without blockage, and out to the rest of the universe. So anytime they're talking about unblocking energy centers or balancing catalysts in that sense really makes sense. And Blu-ray for sure, I think about a lot in terms of communication, when there are issues with other selves. Did you have any thoughts on any this passage, Andrea?
Yeah, for sure. One phase I like about this passage is that it talks about contemplation and meditation. So as two separate things. And the way I see meditation is more the feeling. So using your heart, using you just like the moment of peace and not thinking. Because right, and when you meditate, you're supposed to let the thoughts flitter away. And then contemplation is taking them time to think, right? To contemplate, be like, I wonder. So that's kind of brings in both parts. It's, feel it, let it feel, let your body feel through it without thinking, and then take the time to think through it as well. So it doesn't really balance just do one way or the other. And as I said earlier, yeah, this is my hand, Andrea's hand. If Andrea puts her hand on the fire, it hurts. The hand's like, ow, jerk, what did you do? And I was like, oh, oopsies, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Or, oh, I wanted to see if that would burn. I guess it does. We'll make sure we don't do that again. But both my hand is in pain and I am in pain, right? But they're both parts of one. So if we see ourselves as one as the creator, and all of you are other selves, and all the other selves are also other selves, them putting their hand in the fire, them doing something, or them reflecting something towards us is seeing both parts of the one, right? Seeing it from that side and this side and go, oh, I get it. Because when you do something, this is the reaction. This is how it feels. Cool. Now I know both parts. Let's move forward, right? Whether you need to feel that or whether you need to think that, whatever aligns with you, however you work through it. I think that's really where that blue ray really shines and kind of connects and say, oh, I get it. Two parts of the one. I burned my hand and me is in pain. Both my hand and I am in pain. Cool. Now I know how it feels from both sides. Yeah, let's not do that again. Did not enjoy that. Or, hey, that was fun. Let's do that again. Whatever that is, right?
Yeah, it's a great reminder that so much of our life seems to be about trial and error and learning from experiences. It's one thing I like about this particular passage. It's really framed in terms of whatever it is that helps you keep moving forward in your growth. Anything to add, Michael? Any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Yeah, just the contemplation and meditation, and just like how you're using those tools to unblock the blue ray, because you're just accepting those shadow aspects and the things in yourself that are kind of cringy in a way. And then as you're processing them and learning to love them, like you're not hiding these things from people anymore. You're not putting on that fake facade of just like, oh, I'm not these things, I'm these things, And then as you open up more about that, it just feels like that's how you unblock your blue ray to express like some of the cringiness, some of the asshole tendencies that you have, you know, and just to be able to express those freely and not judge them in yourself and not worry about if somebody else is going to judge them either. You're just talking about your own experiences. And then from that, people can just hear you opening up more about and being vulnerable, because that's what I see a lot of Blu-rays, like the ability just to be vulnerable with your feelings and your emotions and just like everything that's processing through you. And if you can be vulnerable with other people, then that will help them in their own process of just sharing that Blu-ray back, and you can help unblock other people's Blu-rays with that vulnerability.
What a beautiful way to put it. Can't say I had really thought about it that way, but that all makes perfect sense to me.
Me neither until right now.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you we're learning from each other. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And maybe for viewers who are not familiar with Blu-ray, Blu-ray is the energy center, also known in Hinduism as the throat chakra. So whereas the green ray or heart chakra is associated with unconditional love for all others, the throat chakra is associated with wisdom and the ability to communicate with other selves. So, yeah, I really appreciate how this passage really kind of centers on how we are able to use that particular energy center to communicate with other selves and resolve perhaps misunderstandings with those we see in the funhouse mirrors, as it were, who are reflecting things back to us in troubling, challenging ways. Anything to add, Andy?
I always find I have major Blu-ray blockage, although I just kind of just talk without thinking, so most people don't think I've got that blockage. But I just find it so amazing that in this density as human beings, we have such a unique opportunity to work with the Blu-ray because we communicate through our voices, right? And it's like, if you think about what's going on, we're basically like just pumping air from our lungs out of our mouths through the vocal cords and the mouth and everything between, contorting to make different sounds. And then like these sounds, we attribute meaning to, and then the other person that we're communicating to also attribute them some sort of meaning, which we vaguely agree on, and yet neither of us know if it's the exact same meaning. And yet, like these sounds, and because of like meaning that we attributed to these like pretty much random sounds, can cause people to fall in love, to fight, to wage wars. And it's just like, it's so weird, like so bizarre. But then, yeah, I don't know.
It's even weirder when you realize, I think it's been said at least once or twice in some channeling sessions that I've seen, that our sub-logos, our son, specifically chose the bipedal erect body form specifically so that we would have to rely on words to communicate rather than telepathy. They wanted to make it more challenging for us to discover the creator in others by forcing us to use this extremely inefficient mode of communication. Again, just going to show you that our sub-logos is an asshole!
Yeah, perhaps you need to change the title of this podcast to The Asshole Behind the Glass or something like that. But it's just, yeah, it's something I'm still grappling with, because it's like most of the things that do irritate me are things that people say. It's not just what's been said, it's like the way it's said. And sometimes, we attribute things or energies that maybe aren't there, and like it's just so confusing for me. And
it goes back to what we were saying in the very first passage about how 1,000 people can hear exactly the same words coming from the same person at the same time and interpret it in totally different ways based on what you're saying, the tone of voice or facial body language or whatever personal experiences are triggered by those words or whatever. It's different for everybody. It's just, yeah. It's a fun house for sure.
It is, but that irritation is it's such a gift as well, you know, it's such a useful tool because like I can then go within and go, okay, which aspect of myself is reacting to this? And then just give it a cuddle, I guess.
Indeed. Indeed. Anybody else have any other thoughts, reflections? Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, just the I'm thinking about that irritation, because either you're going to be able to take that and go within to consciously produce some positive result in your life, or you're just going to be driven crazy by that irritation. It's not like you're triggered by something and then you immediately let it go. So you're going to fixate on it in one way or another. So it's either going to be a negative response to this thing that's just going to keep pulling you down and like, I can't believe they did this thing. I can't believe they did this thing. Or you can take that and go the other way, but it's going to rule your life one way or the other. So you can't really run from it.
Good point. Indeed. Andrea, anything to add before we move on?
No, I think it's been well said. Absolutely. I agree with all of you. We're all jerks behind the curtains doing this to ourselves, and it's not cool.
Nice. I am embracing my inner asshole and the outer one as well. Let's go ahead then and take a look at a couple passages on something that I think has come up in our discussions previously, and that is being mirrors to others. From the Raw Contact in session 19, question 13, Raw said, "The weakening of the physical vehicle, as you call it, was designed to distort entities towards a predisposition to deal with each other. Thus, the lessons which approach a knowing of love can be begun. This catalyst then is shared between peoples as an important part of each self's development, as well as the experiences of the self and solitude, and the synthesis of all experience through meditation. The quickest way to learn is to deal with other selves. This is a much greater catalyst than dealing with the self. Dealing with the self without other selves is akin to living without what you would call mirrors. Thus, the self cannot see the fruits of its beingness. Thus, each may aid each by reflection. This is also a primary reason for the weakening of the physical vehicle, as you call the physical complex." And on November 16th, 2003, Quo said, "Each of you then is a spark of that creator who has chosen at this time to come into this particular environment of what this instrument calls third density, to live in incarnation amongst others of your kind, being mirrors for others, to reflect to them that truth which they offer you, seeing the mirrors of others that reflect the truth of you back to yourself, and through all the mazes and mirrors, beginning to come to a competency of understanding regarding the nature of the illusion that allows you, as a spirit who is seeking the truth, to penetrate more and more that which is not of the essence of self, so that more and more you are able to take life lightly, to remove from the self the feeling of prison, and to replace that with the feeling of the dream or of the kingdom." Beautiful passages and so much to unpack here. I would say, for starters, yeah, I really appreciate the part where Ra is saying our bodies were specifically designed to be weak, specifically so that we would have to depend on each other. Amazing thing to contemplate in the so many ways that we depend on each other from childhood well into adulthood, and how, as they said, the quickest way to learn is to deal with other selves. Trying to learn without others is like trying to learn without a mirror, without having others to reflect back to you. Really beautiful for starters. Michael, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Oh man, what stuck out to me most was like the take life lightly. Like, why are we doing all of this work? You know, why are we sitting and contemplating everything that triggers us, everything that makes us happy? It's like we're doing that to understand who we are, and by doing that, like we will be able to take life lightly. We'll be able to zoom out, have that zoom out perspective of like, I'm an internal being. There's nothing that can really harm me. I will live forever. I'm just here to experience things. So it's just like a tool to, like it says, take life lightly and just get through the day, you know?
Indeed. Yeah, and I love the follow-up to that, to remove from the self the feeling of prison and to
Mm.
replace that with the feeling of the dream or the kingdom. Such a beautiful image, such beautiful visuals for sure. Andy, anything to add?
No, 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 not really. It's yeah, I love it. I love the idea of penetration and like the freedom is not outwards but within. And you know, when they talk about penetrating, the deeper you go within, the more you see that the essence of you cannot be confined.
Indeed, indeed. Andrea, anything to add?
Yeah, totally. I love this passage, both of these actually. And the thing that stands out to me, so when I read this the first time, I was like, oh, I get it. Not only do we have experiences by leaning on each other, we also learn from each other from stories, right? So you hear a story of somebody doing something, you're like, ugh, I'll never do that, or well, that was a dumb thing to do. Why would they do that? We learn something. Books, movies, video games, plays, music, all of these things that we're creating is to share these different dreams, these different what ifs with each other and see how and learn from that and say, oh, in this magical relationship on TV, this is what happened. And I would totally do it differently. Or, oh, I would do this or I would do that. But then you don't have to experience it yourself. You don't have to go be a police officer. You don't have to go be a dragon. You don't have to go become this thing and experience it yourself because you learn it from a story, a book, a play, a history lesson, whatever. So I think that's the magical part of the dream is it's not just the one thing, is you can learn from all these other things. And then you can choose, oh, I see, choose your own adventure. Well, I can choose this. You can be anything you want in the world, but you probably don't want to be everything. So what do you want to pick this time lifetime? Just go try this for a while, go try that for a while. You're gonna hit catalyst no matter where you go. So it's not like there's an easy path. There's minefields all over the place. But maybe you don't want to go in a war. Maybe you don't want to become a cook. Maybe you don't want to have children, It's like pick your own adventure. And yeah, take the catalysts that come on that path and know that yeah, you'll get another chance to get more catalysts, or just read some books and learn about people that did go through that and be like, ew, I wouldn't want to grow up in a swamp and do whatever the thing is. Yeah, I wouldn't want to live that. Well, sucks for them, but yeah, thanks for the experience. I'm good. But I still learn from it. Appreciate it. Moving on. So that's for
Yeah.
me, that's the mirror part is not just hearing each other and seeing, it's also all the stories that we share with each other.
What a beautiful way to think about it. And again, that was something that not occurred to me at all. But yeah, explains so much why people love movies and books and TV, because those are also mirrors of positive and negative aspects of ourselves, I think. I think one thing, the other thing I appreciated about this passage was where they are talking about how you can reflect to others what you see. It's not just that others are mirrors to yourself. We're all mirrors to each other. So that I think I have started applying that a little bit more when I find myself having a disagreement or in some major or minor conflict with someone else, to try to mirror back what I'm seeing so that maybe they are seeing how they are, how I am perceiving them, that might not have occurred to them. And trying to do it in a loving way, of course, but at least helping them understand how they appear to me, I think is a good Blu-ray exercise. Andrea?
Yeah, to that point, Jonathan, like everybody you meet has a story. So everybody you meet has their own movie and serious drama that's going on, right? So you can learn so much from other people. And when you approach it from that perspective, to be like, I don't know who you are, but let me hear let me hear your movie. What's happening in your movie? What's in chapter one? What's in chapter two? What's in your book? Oh, you have a series of books. Oh my God. And what happened next? You don't have to agree with that because it's not your life. That's the other selves, spiral, and that's their thing. But you can learn from it and go, oh shit, I know I wouldn't want to be a dictator because you had a hard life. Yeah, yeah, there's some things you had to make. You made some bad decisions in my perspective, but man, you also had some pretty weird things happen to you. So anybody you meet, really, you get to hear their story. And even though somebody's like, oh, my life story is not important and there's nothing interesting, like, oh, there is. Everybody has something interesting in their life story, right? It's something that has never yet been experienced and you've never heard of it before. So you get to hear it from scratch. You're like, oh, tell me more. What's going on? You grew up where? What did you do? Oh my God, you had how many siblings? You had a pet? What's going on? What was your favorite color? What did you eat? It's pretty cool when you look at it that way.
Yeah, I don't think that can be emphasized enough, that everybody has a story. However positive or negative a person they seem to be, there's a story that explains how they got to be that way. And taking the time to ask and to listen to that story. Yeah, well said. Well said. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? I think I had another passage on this subject to look at. This one is recently. This was January 24th, 2024. Quo said, "Thus, the self is caught in the hall of mirrors, thinking it is looking upon other faces and not recognizing that it is, in its blocked and imbalanced energetic system, seeing its own face, or we should say, seeing places where it is blocking and misunderstanding and imbalancing the love and light of the one creator, operating not from the green and blue rays, which may see the other selves more clearly as they are, but operating instead out of a blockage or a set or complex of blockages or imbalances. This connects to why we of the Confederation have described other selves as your mirrors. This is quite literally the case, that your relationships reflect back to you the fruit of your own beingness, the quality and state of your work or non-work in consciousness, that which you do not acknowledge or accept within yourself. Which is not to say that all work is completely internal, for two or more selves in relationship are exercising free will in one way or another, having impact upon other selves, contributing to individual and group outcomes and the work of clear communication and the finding of the love within the moment, whether that is expressed as compassion or empathy or forgiveness or understanding, is worthwhile and called for." Yeah, beautiful passage that again comes back to something that we talk about a lot in these podcasts, which is finding the love in the moment. Quo said at some point that if you do not see the face of love in the person you're talking with or the love in the moment, then you have faulty perception. Because all is one in the universe, and that one thing is love. There's literally nothing else in the universe but love, maybe in some more distorted forms than another, but it is love. So yeah, I always find encouragement, inspiration, and looking for that love in the moment when it's hard to find. Andy, any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think the whole sort of relationships reflecting back the fruit of your own beingness is so true from my experience, um where I've struggled sometimes with individuals, and then when I've worked really hard on myself and clearing those particular distortions, I don't even have to have a confrontation or a conversation with that particular person. The relationship just changes, and it's almost miraculous because there's no exchange. It's just there's some kind of shift due to my own, it's like, okay, I've worked on this now. I don't need that person to reflect that onto me and, back towards me. And in terms of like, say people, well, so-called like public villains that we find harder to relate to, it's like, well, perhaps what it's reflecting to me is like my own need for compassion towards that aspect of myself, which, might be really hidden, because I cannot guarantee, right, dare I say his name, Donald Trump, I cannot guarantee that had I grown up in that body, in this exact circumstances, I would not also be taking the same decisions and,
Oh,
the
exactly.
same course of actions, because
Exactly.
ultimately we're different, but in a way we're all the same and we're all one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing I've really come to appreciate. Another thing I've come to appreciate about the law of one is looking at somebody such as that public figure who you may or may not have strong feelings about. But say, it used to be that, well, if I had the same experience as that person, I probably would have done the same thing. And thanks to the law of one, you would in fact have done the same thing because that person is you. That person is literally you doing the same thing. So yeah, of course he would have done the same thing. You'd be exactly the same person. And I find that hugely relieving, I think, in that way. Andrea, anything to add? Any thoughts on that? Other self?
Absolutely. I absolutely love Quo. But I also think that they're a little bit of hoity-toity because hindsight's 2020. Like, yeah, it's easy to say like, oh, obviously if you can't find the love, it's a misdirection. Obviously it's there. And I'm like, well, it must be nice when you're sitting in 6D, hovering in love, surrounded by nothing but love, vibrating love. And you're looking at these 3D people just meandering about and getting into the car accidents and stubbing their toes on stuff. And you're like, how come you don't love you when you stub your toe? I'm like, no, all things aside, though, 100% agree with you, Andy and Jonathan. Like, it's really looking at that perspective of like, yeah, it's your other self. You don't just be thankful you're not the one doing it. How about that? Be thankful you're not the one that has to go through that experience because you chose not to. So, yay, you. Somebody's going through that experience. Somebody chose it. Sucks for them. But appreciate it that it is happening and that you can see that contrast, right? It's giving you that very distinct contrast of like, holy crap, but you need that contrast. And without it, we wouldn't have voices. Without it, we wouldn't be, humans walking around having society and stuff. That's really what's been helping us build more catalysts is having that contrast of what we like and what we don't like. But yeah, it must be nice for Co to sit there, cushy, hovering around and just be like, you guys just can't see the love. It's there. Just keep looking.
Just say it, Andrea. You want to say it. Quo is a real asshole, aren't they?
I mean,
A
they are
collective
us, so
planetary asshole. Yeah.
yeah, they are us. So I guess we are.
Yeah, no, beautiful reminders. Really appreciate the discussion. And before I made the asshole joke, there was something that I wanted to say. Now, unfortunately, it's escaped my mind. So I'll have to see if I can come back to it. Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, what I was getting from this is like a lot of times in relationships we're trying to fix the other person, and that's just like a standard cliche thing. We hear it all the time. You're trying to fix the other person, and you need to be healing these things inside of yourself and more embodying the qualities that you want to see in the world. And it's just like, and that's so true in my relationships. Like I've tried to like fix somebody. Like you'll see the quote unquote blaring thing that they're doing wrong, and then you'll try to correct them or try to tell them to do it differently. But it usually just causes more separation and arguments in the relationship. But if you're like healing those things in yourself, like for the example, like for a while I was trying to get my parents to eat healthy and take their health way more serious, and I'm just like maybe preaching a little bit too much to them, and it's just not having an effect at all. And then as I'm like taking care of myself better and starting to eat more healthy and doing all that, it's like they just start doing it automatically at the same time. So it's like once I let go of that and just like take my own advice and take it more seriously, like you're healing those things in other people too, some magical way, because we're all connected, So yeah, it's just interesting to see how that just healing yourself will help change your external environment too, and help other people on their path. So yeah.
Yeah, and that is another thing on the list of things that I've really appreciated about the law of one. Realizing, as they have said so many times, that if you really want to change the outer world, the best way is to change the inner world. And that is such a huge inspiration and relief, I think, for folks like me who might feel really troubled and really powerless to change anything that we see in the outer world, to realize that you really do have power to change the world, and it's within yourself, and you don't need anybody's permission. You don't need a government's permission to do that inner work and the shadow work within yourself. It is a beautiful, beautiful, powerful thing. Cannot say it enough, so really appreciate your saying it and reminding us again. Did anybody else have any other thoughts on this passage before we move on? I did finally remember the thing that I had meant to add on to what Andrea said, and that was that Yeah, in spite of how much we might find ourselves distressed by the activities of those who seem to be polarized towards service to self, as Quo has said before, we really owe them a huge debt of gratitude for taking on a path that I don't think any of us would particularly want to choose for ourselves. It is an extremely lonely, extremely difficult, extremely painful path into the darkness. And in many ways, they are providing the service to others by helping the creator show just how far away from the light you can go into the dark. And from creator's point of view, I think creator loves that, because creator always wants to know, how far can you go? How far can you polarize towards the light or the dark? And so in that sense, I think they're helping everyone. So mixed blessing in disguise, I guess would be the term. If no one else has anything to add, let's take a look at another aspect of this, and that is mirrors of the mind. It's from one of my favorite sessions. This was October 17th, 1988, and Quo said, "In our opinion, we are completely within the instrument's mind. That is, we're allowed to speak because the instrument has made a pathway deeply enough into its own subconscious levels of thought that it is able to contact principles which lie deep within the mind and are influenced by the various energies of gravity in a spiritual sense, which flow rhythmically through the metaphysical portion of each individual as well as the physiological portion. The study of the latter is called astrology. The study of the former could be called metaphysical astrology, and would reveal an inner universe of which the outer infinity of galaxies is but a hologram, which moves in a predictable fashion, allowing at various times the various life-giving, gem-like energies of the archetypal subconscious to flash through to the surface and produce each day differently, each moment slightly variously, the message of love and light. This instrument, therefore, may identify us with itself in the deepest reality of which we are aware. The infinity and reality lie not outside, but inside the non-thing, which is each entity's consciousness. All studies concerning an entity are studies in a mirror, the true self, the inner self being invisible. One learns of the inner self by looking very carefully in the mirror." I just love this suggestion that they're saying we're really all in Carla's mind. This is all just something that's in Carla's mind. And it sounds like, well, it's just some figment of the imagination. But I think they're pointing to something more deeper and more real. I think we have used this graphic before to look at the mind in terms of like an iceberg. If you can think of the conscious mind as the tip of the iceberg above water, you could think of the subconscious mind as the part of the iceberg that's just below the surface of water, just below the surface of consciousness. And if you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you start getting into levels of unconscious mind. And on a greater level, you could say that, if you look at your individual mind and go deeper and deeper into the subconscious, you get to what they refer to as the racial mind, the collective mind of your race, whether it be the race on this planet or perhaps the race from another planet that you're incarnated on. And if you go deeper still into the subconscious, you get to what they call the planetary mind, the mind of planet Earth. Or perhaps eventually the social memory complex yet to be formed. And if you go deeper, deeper still, you get to what they call the archetypical mind, the mind of our solar system, or the mind of our galaxy, the mind of whatever our corner of the universe is. And saying eventually, if you go deeper enough, you arrive at the universal or the cosmic mind, or the mind of the one infinite creator. So to me, it would make sense that they're saying to Carla that really we're in your mind, in the sense that if you go deep enough, we're all one mind in the first place. So yeah, that was my long, detailed take on that. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Andrea, any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, the one thing at a higher level, because we're going high level, so let's go at a higher level on this one. The what I find interesting with a lot one is the amount of tools that Guo and Ra offer to the seekers. So they talk about astrology, they talk about astronomy, they talk about metaphysical, they talk about tarot, they talk about chakras. They give us all these different tools to say the same thing, that we are one. But they kind of go on these avenues to be like, oh, let's deep dive into tarot, let's deep dive into archetypes, let's deep dive into astrology, into gems, into healing, into vibrations, into all these things that ultimately come the same. It's kind of like a choose your own lessons, right? There's some people like to do manual labor jobs, some people like to do creative jobs, some people like desk jobs, some people like to be, do monotonous jobs. It's that kind of tools that they offer the seekers, and I really appreciate that of the whole Law of One compendium. That you can choose the one that resonates with you more, the one that aligns with how you're seeking and what makes more sense for you, and just go down that avenue without having to be like, no, as a good student and a good seeker, I must understand tarot. I must understand gems and whatever. Pick whatever one works and go with it. And yeah, ultimately, if it is in we are one, we are all dreaming of this world in a matrix style, kind of without being batteries for something else. Um, you know, it just makes sense. To me, it makes sense. And I really appreciate the fact that there's many ways to explain the same thing, because not all of them have to make sense to me. Not all of them have to resonate. I don't have to understand all of them. But the ones that do resonate, the rabbit holes I do choose to go down, there's enough information there that I can make my own decisions and come to the conclusion, the right conclusion, that we are one.
Yeah, great way to put it, and I appreciate it, since yes, there are certainly many avenues that don't particularly resonate with me or that I don't understand, but does go back to what we were saying in the very beginning about the Law of One being basically a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Whatever route you choose to explore that, it eventually takes you back to that same thought, which is beautiful. Something I thought about a long time. I've thought about the idea that all was one, like way back when my spiritual awakening started in my 20s. But yeah, it took me 40 years to discover the Law of One and find that, oh, okay, somebody's saying it here in a way that makes even more sense. Michael, any thoughts? Anything to add?
Oh man, Andrea, that was amazing. Like yeah, you just connecting so many dots like in my head, and just like the tools for like all these tools that we're given in like the tarot, astrology. Like I'm really into astrology right now. I'm just kind of picking it up within the last 2 years, but I was researching like the aspects of the opposition aspects, and that like kind of shows you in your chart where you're actually supposed to find mirrors, like your most let's see, apparent mirrors in your life that will be popping up. So I was already studying this, and then of course, like you brought up the podcast, and I was like, oh man, this is interesting how I'm kind of like already studying this, but all of these tools are used to help you pretty much understand everything outside of you that is inside of you too, and it's just like a crazy quantum cosmos reality that we live in. And it's just so cool to think about. And yeah, man, I'm just blown away by the complexity and everything of this universe. So thank you for that explanation, Andrea. It was beautiful.
And I love that suggestion in this passage that the infinity and reality are not on the outside, but within you, and that what we perceive as the outer universe is really just a reflection of the universe within. And that going within, there's just as infinite universe. I just really, really love that, really vibe with that. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what Quo says is all about, I feel, knowing the self, knowing the or what I call the God particle within. And I used to be really, really into astrology, and I specialize in an area called the North Node. So I check that out, Michael, because from my experience with myself and doing readings for others, is that when you follow the North Node, everything in your life kind of falls into place effortlessly. But the temptation for most people is to go to their South Node, which is like past lives. Sorry to digress, but yeah, but then I got really into the archetypes instead as a way of knowing oneself. And I would just say, like, it just comes down to like meditation and connecting with the one infinite creator within. And once that connection comes, it will all make sense, I guess. I don't know whether to share an experience I had 25 years ago, when I was at a 10-day silent retreat, and I had this like pinprick sensation during the retreat, and I kind of followed it, and it was so powerful, so strong. It's like the size of a grain of sand. It started from my head, and it was almost scary because that sensation was so powerful. I thought I was going to have a stroke or go blind. And each time it stopped at an energy center, it felt like an explosion, that area of my body would like just vibrate, and like first there and then the throat. And when it got to the heart energy center, I thought I was going to die of a heart attack because it kind of rested there, and then it went inwards, and then there was just like silence and stillness. And then I sat with it for a while, not really knowing what's going on. And then my brain took over, and it's like, oh my God, the universe is talking to me. Wow, what do you want to say to me, universe? And the universe said to me, shh. And like for 25 years, I've been like trying to establish like a continuous connection with it. And the whole 25 years, all it ever said to me was, shh.
As in, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, basically, just go into the silence. And it's only earlier this year, that it started saying something different, because I had another kind of breakthrough. And now all it says to me is, do you see me in this? So like the universe, in the 26 years I've had communication with it, has only said two things: shh, and do you see me in this?
Wow.
That's
I
beautiful.
just realized my wife is the universe, apparently, 'cause she's told me the exact same thing. I never really thought of it that way. I'm going to have to meditate on that. Well, thank you for sharing that, and beautiful, powerful story. I know you've been working a lot with the archetypical mind, and that's definitely something that has been helpful for me. And astrology is something that I've never really understood that well, but I'm glad that it's working as a effective tool for you, Michael. Andrea, I forgot, do you work with astrology, archetypical mind, tarot, anything else to help you as a tool?
No. And I used to follow science and research and math and things like that, but no, at this point it's just contemplation and meditation. More the contemplation. I'm a thinker, not a feeler. Still have feelings, obviously, not a robot, but definitely more the thinking your way through, and that's kind of really coming through using some science and coming through breakthroughs that way.
It's obviously working really well for you, so keep us
Well,
updated.
thank you. I'll let you know on the other side. Once you get to the hindsight 2020, be like, damn it, I was supposed to go the other way. Oh, I have to do this again.
Well, we do have one last section and a couple passages to look at. So for anyone who has been curious about their previous incarnations, a couple passages here on what could be described as mirror magic. On April 18th, 2006, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, "We would now move to a discussion of the details of ways to get in touch with more information about the self in previous incarnations. It may be helpful to express this intention by looking at the self in the mirror. You may look into the eyes, or you may simply look out of focus at the face. Either technique is efficacious for some entities. You may indeed find the image of your face in the mirror beginning to change into different faces as you gaze into that mirror for some time. We would suggest 5 of your minutes as the appropriate cutoff point. Certainly between 30 seconds and 5 minutes at a time is enough intensity for you to experience at any one time. We would not suggest doing this more often than once a day. Such work as this may seem slight, however, it is substantive and powerful. When you harness your will and focus it, you are a person of magic and power, and that which you desire will come to you. Intriguing, to say the least. And on June 24th, 2005, Quo said, "You have the experience of coming through all the densities up until this one. This includes the experience of being rock, sky, water, and wind. It includes the experiences of many inner planes beingness energies, which are spirits of rock, wind, and fire, and so forth. You have experienced being trees, animals, and plants. And there are energies within second density nature, such as what this instrument would call fairies, gnomes, and trolls, for instance, where the byplay betwixt rock and animal is expressed. As you look into the mirror and you begin to move into the vastness of your own experience as a soul stream, that upon which you are working within this incarnation and at this moment creates the atmosphere in which you see certain aspects that are going to be helpful to you in your process on any of a number of levels that go infinitely in the inner planes of your experiences." Viewers, I wish I could tell you that I've tried this and that I saw many, many great things from my previous incarnations, but I have not. I think there was actually one time that I did actually try looking in the mirror for, I think, a couple minutes. And it was enough to see what they were talking about, how that could be. They certainly, it is commonly said that the eyes are the windows of the soul. And I could easily imagine how looking into one's own eyes in a mirror for like 5 minutes could take you some pretty deep places. But I just thought this was intriguing to share for any of our viewers who might be interested in this and can't pay for a hypnotic regression from someone else or something. Did you have any thoughts on this, Michael?
First thing I thought about is like my first acid trip, you know, like you're looking into a mirror and you're like, that can't be me. Is that me? But you're having all these deep thoughts, you know, so there is something to that mirror aspect of actually looking into a mirror. Of course, we're talking about all the other ways of how mirrors affect us through other people or our other selves. But also at our Law of One event in Seattle, we had this I guess, authentic relating kind of game where you're doing like 30 seconds of eye gazing, and then it goes up to a minute, and then 2 minutes, and then 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is a long time just to be staring into the soul of another human being, especially for how we see consciousness right now in the 3D sense. You know, you're not really going that super deep with somebody you don't really know that well. And after like 3 minutes, like it does start to even turn into its own kind of psychedelic trip. Your face kind of starts to morph. You can almost feel like their energy on some telepathic level. And so it's like there's definitely something there to just like focusing in on the eyes, you know. So I don't know what it is yet.
Sure.
I haven't explored it too much, but there's definitely something there from my couple experiences with that.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that because, yeah, for sure, I feel uncomfortable looking into somebody's eyes for more than like 5 seconds. It just feels like an invasion of privacy to me, and yeah, I'm very protective about that. Anything to add, Andy?
Yeah, so I actually did this, and I was so looking forward to this passage because oh man, I did it for a month for about 20 minutes every night. So as part of my kind of alchemical work, which I've been doing for a bit. And so what I do is I had instructions. So I have like 2 candles on either side, and but not reflected in the mirror. And then I burn an incense cone. And so from the start of the incense cone until the end was when I would look at the mirror. But I found like looking at the eyes too distracting because every time I blinked, like my attention would get disrupted. So I looked sort of in that bit just under the nostrils. And it's scary as fuck, man. It's like I got so freaked out the first night because it's like this face emerged that wasn't my face from behind and within my face, and like it just sent like a horrible shiver down my spine. And And you're supposed to do this like with just the candles with the light off at night, but I was too scared. Like I had my light on, but I guess I'm quite foolhardy, so I was just like, fuck it, I'm scared, but I'm gonna keep going. So I went on for like 30 nights,
Wow.
and after the initial fear, it was so beautiful and magical, and all sorts of characters sort of emerged, and some of them they didn't all emerge from behind or within. Like some of them felt like they were coming in from above, kind of more like shadows. So I guess they were kind of, I would say the ones from inside are more like 3 or 4D, and then the ones were more like 2D. Yeah, I think if you're foolhardy enough, it's worth trying, and it is a really powerful practice. So and recently I did it again one night because I had a very intense catalyst where someone really triggered me and pissed me off, and I just thought, okay, I'll try the balancing exercise. I'll just let myself get as angry as that anger wants to get, and I raged, I cursed this person, and I felt so guilty. And that evening, so now my evening work meditation has to do with like sacred geometry, but that evening something said to me, okay, you want to do the mirror exercise. And I found it so hard because I felt so much shame for my anger. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it anyway. And it was so hard to look at myself in the mirror because of the shame I felt.
Hmm.
And but I did it anyway. And after, beyond that first initial horrible weight of shame, I was like, okay, see the creator in this, because that's what Ra says, like look in the mirror and see the
Right.
creator in yourself. And at that point, I felt so much forgiveness and grace. And these mirror exercises are really powerful. I have tried the turbo version where you switch lights off and you just have the candles, and
Ooh.
it is scary, but it's
Have you got a
also,
sense from your mirror exercises of being able to see like recurring lessons that you are still working on in this incarnation and seeing how they may have manifested in previous ones?
not so much lessons. They're more like um they're they're not lessons so much as they are scars, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. It's so like past life regrets that I've carried into this life. So I've seen kind of more of those rather than lessons. If
That
that
makes
makes,
sense.
I don't know
I
if
can
that makes
picture that.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Andrea, any thoughts, questions, reflections?
Yeah, totally. Andy, did the universe change what it was saying after your mirror exercises or before?
Oh, it changed before.
Before. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Um, really interesting. I have done the looking in yourself at yourself in the eyes in the mirror. I quite enjoy the exercise. I find a little bit different. It's more just mellow, and just kind of letting things come and go. Um, but I guess one thing I would say, because they say you can basically obviously regress and look at your previous selves, but imagine how many previous selves you've had. You've been probably, your soul's been alive for millions and billions of years. You've had so many experiences. Do you want to carry that with you all everywhere? Like we're blessed in a sense to have this veil of forgetting where we forget everything from the past. Yeah, we forget that we're one as well. That part sucks, obviously. But we also don't carry the shame, the guilt, the pain, the suffering, the joy, the lives. Imagine you've been previously married and had kids and you've seen your kids die. Do you want to carry that when you're like 70 years old and feel that pain again? Like, no thanks.
Right.
So we get a chance to have a fresh opportunity, a fresh life, a fresh experience. And as much as I really wanted to, like in the past, I really wanted to go do regressions and find more about past lives. I've kind of taken a step back and say, I can spend my whole life chasing that and finding that out. And at the end, all I've found out is what I've previously lived, and I haven't actually lived. So I'm like, okay, there has to be some sort of balance, at least for myself, where I'm like, I'm curious as to what previous lessons I've learned and, previous mind fields that I've hit that I can now avoid. But at the same time, I want to spend this lifetime enjoying it and living it and experiencing it, and less about what used to be, but more about what is, and what is right now. How much, juice can I suck out of this orange, of this logos? How much life can I get out of it
Well,
versus learn
that's what
more
I would
about
imagine
history.
would be one of the benefits of doing that exercise. Not so much maybe to see the details of previous incarnations as animals and plants and rocks and fire and whatever, but maybe just a sense of your inner essence, who you are. Is that
Yeah.
something that you got from the exercise?
I didn't get that deep, no. It got more towards just enjoying the transition, and kind of, yeah, the face does blur out and the things do kind of pop up, but I would just enjoy the experience. It was less, I had less feelings that came with it, or less lessons learned. For me, it was just peaceful to enjoy that. But yeah, I would say my only caveat around those is like, yes, you can go chase fairies and trolls and gnomes, and they do exist. Go find them, and ghosts and all these things, and you can spend your whole life doing it, which is cool. If that's your life, go do it. That's super enjoyable. But there's so many things to enjoy that it's really hard to just like, it's easy to get narrowed down into one thing. But keep in mind, like, this is your playground, so go play, right? Enjoy everything. Try a little bit of everything, buffet style.
Well said. Last detailed question before we kind of move on and wrap things up. How many minutes were you doing the mirror exercise?
I didn't keep a timer, which is probably not great. Like they say, don't do more than 5 minutes. There's a reason for that, because you can lose yourself in a sense. You dissociate, and that's not great either, because then you're no longer you. You're the spirit you, and then this no longer matters, which is not great. So I think definitely sticking within what Quo said, around them 5 minutes max, and then taking it from there and building it up. But yeah, I didn't keep a timer. It just, when I was kind of tired of the morphing, I'm like, okay, that's enough for me.
Wow, super fascinating. Viewers, hope you appreciated that. Hope you learned something valuable from it. Anybody have anything to add before we move on and wrap things up here? I believe this was the last set of passages we were looking at. Sounds good. Well, where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons that we might want to remember from our 2 hour plus discussion? I've got 4 things for your consideration. First, yeah, if you can remember that we are all mirrors to each other, and that we are all distorted mirrors to each other, and that is part of the learning process, I would say that would be great. And if you can remember that things we don't like in others, usually a mirror of what we cannot accept inside ourselves, and that is a great catalyst for growth. And that shadow work means embracing, integrating what we don't like in order to be complete 360-degree beings. Always like the visual of the yin yang symbol, and realizing that you need light and darkness together to be complete. And that, lastly, it's all in your mind. Everything that we've talked about, everything in the apparent outer world, material world, is all a construction of your mind. It's just, could spend the rest of our lives contemplating that. Anything to add, Andy? Any thoughts, takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
That's great. Andrea?
Yeah, thank you again very much for having myself, and all the other selves. It's been an absolute joy, and yeah, we're all making this up as we go along, literally and metaphysically at the same time. So whatever it is, you're doing great, and whoever's listening to this, you're doing your best. So keep doing your best. That's all that matters.
Indeed. Michael?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it on all of these points, and just that shadow work of just like embracing that dark aspect of you, and just going into that. I think a lot of times, like, our hatred kind of fuels our enemies to stay in power a lot of times too. So it's just like, just remembering, like, if you really want to get rid of Donald Trump, you have to learn how to love him and incorporate those tendencies inside of yourself. You know, if you're struggling with that aisle of politics or the other side, just like you heal that within yourself, find some way to love that person, and then you'll diminish their power. Because if not, then they're still controlling you with their hatred, and you just can't hate your way out of a problem. I don't believe that's true.
You can't hate your way out of a problem. That's really good. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that in those words, but I really like that. What a beautiful thing to remember. That is takeaway lesson number 5, for sure. Well, as always, really appreciate the conversation. Really appreciate your being here. Really wanted you all to be here to have this very conversation about mirrors. But more than that, I really wanted you here for the pop quiz. The pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just to kind of end things on a fun note and maybe look for some Law of One connections in pop culture. So since today's episode was about mirrors, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz about movies with mirrors. There are, of course, many great movies with many great mirror scenes, possibly most notably The Matrix. So today I'm going to ask you 3 questions about 3 different movies with famous mirror scenes. See how many you can answer correctly. You who are watching this on video, you can say your answers out loud. We can hear you through time space. Otherwise, our first question is in fact not about The Matrix. It's about another movie, a classic martial arts movie from the 70s that has a very well-known movie scene at the end. And that, of course, is Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. It's an old movie. It goes back to the 1970s, I believe, but I think it's still regarded as a classic. Did panelists, have you seen Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee? Andrew's shaking her head no. Andy? No? No. Michael, have you seen Enter the Dragon?
Bits and pieces, but I haven't like really watched it yet. So I'll say no.
Shoot. Okay. Well, this question is then for our viewer, someone who has seen this movie. If, like me, you're a great Bruce Lee fan, this was probably considered one of his best movies. And the ending scene is one where he has to go after the villain. He goes into this room that is a hall of mirrors where basically it's really hard. He can't tell where the villain is and he keeps striking him from unknown places. The question here is true or false? Bruce Lee had to work hard to convince the movie studio to include the final mirror scene in Enter the Dragon. Panelists, I think you're just going to have to give it your best guess.
True.
What do you think? True or false? I'll have to say it out loud. So
Yeah, I'll say true.
Yeah, I'd say true because like the camera work must have been so tricky with all those mirrors.
Probably true.
Indeed. It is in fact false. Lee himself was actually opposed to it because when the director floated the idea to him, he really didn't understand how that was going to work, and he thought that it was going to mess up the intensity of the fight scene that had led up to this moment. But I think when the director actually showed him the physical setup for it and showed him how the cameras could be put, I think they put a camera like into a movable closet and they would just put little holes in the mirrors so that they could film without the camera actually showing up in the mirror, which would ruin it. He realized that it was a powerful scene. And yeah, YouTube it. Just go on YouTube and put in Enter the Dragon mirror scene and you'll see. It's really well done and a great metaphor for trying to discern reality from illusion and truth from falsity. Highly recommend it. Are you ready for your next question? Let's see if you've seen this one. This is from the Creed movie. Who did director Ryan Coogler originally want to play the role of Adonis Creed in the first Creed movie? Was it A, Shameik Moore, B, John Boyega, C, Chadwick Boseman, or D, Michael B. Jordan? Have any of you guys seen the Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan? Andrew says no. Andy? No. And Michael, no. I am really striking out on the pop quiz here. What's that?
I'm getting the feeling you're a fighter, not a lover. There's a lot of stories in here for you.
Oh, yeah. It's a great movie. I was not a big Rocky fan didn't enjoy those in particular, although I saw many of them. But the Creed movies were really well done. Here, Michael B. Jordan plays the son of Apollo Creed, who was in the very first Rocky movie, and Sylvester Stallone agrees reluctantly to train him after making contact. But in this scene, yeah, it's a great scene where he's talking to him in front of a mirror. And Sylvester Stallone says, what's the words? Rocky says, "You see this guy here staring back at you? Yeah, that's your toughest opponent. Every time you get into the ring, that's who you're going against. I believe that in boxing, and I believe that in life." Great scene. The question is, who did the director, Ryan Coogler, originally want to play the role of Adonis Creed? Do you know any of those actors? This is actually testing to see if you know any of these great actors.
I love John Boyega. He's,
Good guess. He was from Star Wars. He was in one of the Star Wars movies.
but I can't imagine him I don't know. I'll go for him anyway.
And Chadwick Boseman, was he in which was the Black Panther? Was he the main character that did pass away? So maybe I would say Chadwick, because he's not with us anymore. So I don't know, that would be my guess.
He would have been great in that role. Yeah. Ryan Coogler also directed Black Panther, for what it's worth. Andrea, any guesses?
I'm great with faces, not names, so I'm gonna go with C. Yeah, maybe
Nice.
Chadwick Boseman.
Correct answer is D. Apparently, Michael B. Jordan is who he had in mind for the role from the beginning, and that's because he had worked with him previously in Fruitvale Station, a movie I have not seen. And Michael B. Jordan was, of course, also in the Black Panther, but not as the Black Panther. He was Eric Killmonger, and he did an amazing job in that role as well. And all four of those have been great in other movies. Shameik Moore, I believe, was the voice of Miles Morales in the Sony Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movies, which are also amazing. Well, last question. Let's see how we do on your last question. My guess is you haven't seen this one either. This is Black Swan with Natalie Portman. The question is, true or false? Natalie Portman said filming Black Swan was one of the creepiest experiences of her life. Am I guessing correctly, panelists, that none of you have seen this movie either?
I've seen it.
Do you know anything about it?
It is a really creepy movie, I'd say. You know, it's about a really toxic mother-daughter relationship. But really good, really powerful, I think.
I will admit that I have not seen this movie, though I have seen clips of it on YouTube. And yes, it would appear to be a great psychological thriller where she plays a ballerina who is playing, I think, the White Swan or the Black. I can't remember. There's two dancers. One is portraying the White Swan, the other the Black Swan, and they kind of represent light and dark and positive and negative and all that stuff. But it's a really deep psychological thriller that apparently used mirrors a lot to create these effects of going into the psychology of what she's experiencing. So what do you think? True or false? Would Natalie Portman say that this was one of the creepiest experiences of her life filming it?
I'll say false.
Good guess. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards true, but since you're always throwing us for loops, I'll say false as well. But I remember I have seen this movie one time and I was really into it. Like this, I love psychological thrillers and like things like Black Mirror and things that are just like leave you with an uneasy feeling at the end of them. That's kind of my Scorpio style anyway. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going with true as well.
Nice. The correct answer is indeed false. Portman was quoted as saying, and I'm quoting Natalie Portman, she said, "When I saw the final cut, I was completely surprised by what the movie was like. I thought we were shooting something like almost documentary style. And then I watched it, and it was an over-the-top thriller." She said this experience confirmed her idea that film is essentially a director's medium, and it is possible for actors to finish a movie and still be completely in the dark as to how the final product will look and feel. which is amazing. You said that you actually saw it, Michael? You saw this movie?
Yeah, and that's like really surprising that she just thought it was kind of like a documentary style, and then what the actual product is like, it's insane. It was like, makes me think of like when we're done here on this life and we get to go view our life from another perspective outside of this one. It's just like, how is it going to be perceived, you know, when we watch our movie again, you know?
For sure. And she's
I'll bring
not
the
done,
popcorn.
not by any stretch. I think it just shows you how, as she was saying, the director can shape and mold it to their vision, and the actors don't necessarily know what's going on or what it's going to look like. Which I suppose is a great metaphor for third density life, where, as you said, we're all creators and co-creators. We're the actors, we're the directors, we're the set directors, the audience, the lighting, and everything. We're everything. So, panelists, as always, it's been a joy hanging with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or maybe very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.